You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you along for the ride. Plenty to get to today, a couple of different LSU football notes, and of course, men's basketball. They head up to College Station, or I should say they head over to College Station on Saturday for another road game. They'll face number 11 Texas A&M as they look to build off of their first conference win of the season against Arkansas, albeit this is going to be a very tough test and a tough challenge for the Tigers in their first of two back-to-back road games here in this stretch. After the trip to A&M, it's a trip to Coleman Coliseum, which, I mean, well, we know the house of horrors that place has been, but we'll focus in mainly on Texas A&M today. So, again, glad to have you along for the ride. Thank you for being here. Be sure to subscribe, share, like. All of those things are greatly appreciated. Follow me on social media, on Twitter, X at Musso Matthew. Find me on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram at Matthew Musso1. All of that greatly appreciated as well. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. So, obviously, look, on Thursday afternoon, the news broke about LSU backup quarterback Colin Hurley being in a very serious car accident on campus early Thursday morning, was found unresponsive, butt breathing. The Baton Rouge Fire Department had to pull him from his car, loaded him into an ambulance, and he was hospitalized. Impairment not suspected by officials on the scene. Thursday afternoon, Colin Hurley's family did release a statement that he thanked the first responders and doctors, nurses that have cared for him at Our Lady of the Lake, that he was resting and stable, but would still be undergoing further testing, but they did expect a full recovery. That is obviously the good news. There's really not much more to pass along in terms of an update right now on Hurley's condition. Remember, obviously, this is a serious medical situation, so there's obviously privacy laws and things that are at play there, and also especially the guy like Colin Hurley, who is 17 years old. That's going to be even more, prevalent. So when his family releases another statement, when LSU releases more statements and stuff, we can obviously pass that along. But the bigger thing here is just praying for Colin Hurley. That's a very serious and a situation that you wish no family has to go through, and no 17-year-old kid obviously has to go through. That is very traumatic. So to hear full recovery is expected, that's obviously great news. But nonetheless, our thoughts and prayers continue to be with Colin Hurley and his family as he's on that road to recovery. We will very much respect the family's privacy, and whenever there's more to pass along, we will pass it along. Okay. Our next topic of discussion with LSU deals with the NFL draft. And look, LSU had a lot of success in retaining in this draft cycle. Obviously, you get Garrett Nussmeier back. Harold Perkins decides to come back. There were certain guys that you knew would probably be off, right? I mean, a guy like Will Campbell, you knew that was done after 3 years. Emory Jones kind of on the fence. He ends up leaving. Same with a guy like Mason Taylor ends up leaving. But then you also had guys out of eligibility, like a Savion Jones and whatnot, who you knew would be going. But to get an athlete like Harold Perkins back for 2025, that's massive. Obviously, getting your starting quarterback and Garrett Nussmeier back, you can't really overstate how huge that is. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier right now looks like the best quarterback returning in the SEC for 2025, and I don't really think that's much of a debate. He's definitely the most proven guy, I would say, given the numbers that he put up and things of that nature. So you made out really well. As for the guys that you are losing, and I know that doesn't necessarily always move the needle because, okay, they're moving on and their impact with LSU is done, and now they're off to the next stage of their career. Everyone here still obviously roots for those guys in the NFL and wants them to succeed. I'm not saying you just completely cast them aside or any of us completely cast them aside. That's not the case at all. I mean, look at everybody who's, adopted the Bengals and the Commanders and even the Vikings, to an extent with Justin Jefferson. So, obviously not saying that, but draft stuff sometimes doesn't always pop, right? For that reason. I mean, their impact at LSU is done and they're moving on. But Will Campbell is extremely interesting to me in this draft because Will Campbell is going to be a first-round pick. And when that happens, he will make LSU history. He will be the first offensive tackle drafted in the first round from LSU. And he will be the first LSU offensive lineman taken in the first round since Alan Faneca in 1998. We've talked about that plenty throughout the offseason, throughout the season, all of it when talking about Will Campbell. Like the history that he's going to make, and that's going to be awesome. I don't know about y'all. I like seeing things that I've never seen before. The example I always give is 2019. As great as that year was, and it was the best football season any of us have ever witnessed. It's the greatest college football team of all time. There were so many moments. That's one of my favorite things, is there's something you can pick out from each week of that season that stands out. And anytime anyone ever asks me what my favorite moment from that season is, I always tell them it was Joe Burrow's Heisman ceremony, because I'd never seen that before. I didn't see Billy Cannon win the Heisman Trophy. A lot of LSU fans didn't. Joe Burrow was the first time we'd ever seen that, and you had gotten close a couple of times, but it was the first. You've never seen it. I've never seen LSU have a first rounder in the tackle in the draft. Nobody has. It's never happened. So, I think that is really, really cool. What's interesting about Campbell, though, is where in the first round he goes. And Chris Trapasso over at CBS Sports, Chris does great work. Draft analyst, he's like their lead draft analyst over there, released a mock draft recently and has Will Campbell mocked the highest that I've seen him mocked, and that is third overall to the Tennessee Titans. Easily the first offensive lineman off the board, first tackle off the board, all of those things. And Trapasso's reasoning for having Campbell in that spot is even more intriguing. He hopped on After Further Review with Matt Moscona on Thursday and discussed why he has Will Campbell third overall and the first offensive lineman off the board.
I mean, this one is going to be I think consensus. You can have 50 other draft analysts on, and they're all going to say Will Campbell is the best blocker in this class. Just 3 straight years of steady play, looked like a first-rounder when he was a freshman, never regressed from that. He looks under control. The balance that he plays with in pass protection, he's nasty as a run blocker. He just needs to get a little stronger, which is the case for 99% of any offensive lineman coming into the league, especially younger ones.
How about that? He's the best blocker in the draft. And he says he thinks it's going to be consensus by the time the draft rolls around. That is how Will Campbell will be viewed. Strength needs to be built up a little bit, but you heard him say there, that's the case with everybody. When they're young tackles coming into the league. And who knows? Will Will stick at left tackle? Will he move over to right tackle in the NFL? I don't know. But best blocker in the entire draft, not best offensive tackle, not best offensive lineman, the best blocker in the entire draft, that's a mouthful. And, I mean, it fits. I mean, you saw Will be incredibly consistent and every phase throughout his time at LSU. I know the running game didn't take off the way anybody wanted it to in 2024, but that's not all on Will Campbell. I mean, that's a guy who gave up, 2 sacks? Maybe 3 his entire LSU career? Forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, and I don't remember it off the top of my head at the current moment. Will Campbell goes top 5 and is the first off the board when it comes to his position, and, again, not just tackle, offensive line in general. That's only going to further cement him as the best tackle in LSU history. So we'll see best blocker in the entire draft. How about that? I mean, that is a mouthful. Now, as great as the Will Campbell stuff was from Chris Trapasso, there was one more thing that he said on After Further Review, and this was unprompted. When you look at this mock draft, Campbell is the only Tiger he has in the first round. That shouldn't be surprising. That's how this has really gone, especially now that, guys like Nussmeier and Perkins have announced that they're returning. They're obviously not going to be included in any of these. And those are two guys that you saw included in mock drafts throughout the regular season. But Trapasso offered up one more Tiger, again, unprompted, that he thought could sneak into the first round come April.
The one other LSU player that I don't have in this mock that I might have because I just finished my grade on him, Braden Swinson, was tremendous on film. I know he's a little bit older, was a transfer from Oregon, but the bend, the tenacity, hustle, the pass rush moves, the length, I think the pre-draft process, his measurables are going to make a big difference. But on film, he looks like a first-round caliber player to me. And usually in the back portion of the draft, those teams don't need quarterbacks. They usually have pretty solid wide receiver groups. Those edge rushers can be that final piece of the puzzle for those teams picking, from 25 to 32. Braden Swinson is the other one that I think could ultimately go in round 1 from LSU.
How about that? When I heard that, sitting there during the show yesterday, or on Thursday, I should say, my ears immediately perked up. Because, we talked plenty about Braden Swinson throughout the regular season for LSU and into the postseason. And that's a guy who had just a massive breakout season. At one point was on pace to break LSU's single-season sack record held by Arden Key. Now, he slowed from that pace. But in terms of jump that you saw from one year to the other, remember when Braden Swinson transferred in from Oregon. Remember how that was. Everyone was looking at Ovie Agofu as going to be that guy to, fill in and take the place that Ojulari left and be that edge rusher guy, and he just wasn't. Braden Swinson ended up being your most effective pass rusher in 2023. Now, he had a lot of hurries, a lot of hits on the quarterback, didn't really get home as much, but you bring in Kevin Peoples to help coach the edges along with Bo Davis, and Kevin Peoples deserves a hell of a lot of credit for this. And you saw Braden Swinson immediately start to jump off the page from game 1 throughout the rest of the season in terms of pass rush. And he might have played his way into the first round. At least he's going to potentially start getting, looks there. Trapasso's is reputable as just about anybody when it comes to draft evaluations and things of that nature. And what he said there, where it's like, you look late in that first round, that's where edge rushers can really go, where teams are set at quarterback, have pretty good wide receiver corps, that last missing piece. An edge rusher is a really important part. They could fill up on those guys. There's always can be a run late in the first round. And he's right. And the example that I will give you from an LSU perspective is Kayvon Chason. We were all always enamored with Kayvon Chason, and why not? He was a number 18 at LSU. The athletic ability was just insane. The guy was an absolute freak. But when you look at his career stats, 92 total tackles, 9.5 sacks. Braden Swinson almost had 9.5 sacks this season. But Chason performed well at the Combine, at Pro Day, all of those things, and he was drafted first round, 20th overall by the Jaguars, who had already taken Trevor Lawrence. They were set there. They had made moves off season to get receivers in there. And then they filled in with the edge rusher, and it was Chason. So, yeah, I can absolutely see a world where Braden Swinson does end up in the back half of this first round. And I think that would just be awesome, obviously for Swinson, but from an LSU perspective, in a recruiting perspective, for Kevin Peoples, that's your ticket right there. That's your shining example that you can, you can show to every recruit, whether it be high school or transfer portal, of development. Because yes, while Swinson in 23 was your best edge rusher, the jump he took is otherworldly this season. Maybe it'll get him picked in the latter half of the first round. I sure hope it does. But we'll obviously keep an eye on that, see if he starts to pop up in other mock drafts as we get closer to April. All right, one thing left to do here. LSU Hoops, they head over to College Station Saturday night, 7:30 tip-off for the Tigers and the Aggies. LSU coming off a 78-74 win over Arkansas in the PMAC to get their first conference win of the season. They'll face Texas A&M, who comes in 2-2 in the league, ranked number 11 in the country. There is no betting line at the time of this recording. They have not been released, but LSU will be an underdog in this game and probably a substantial underdog. Here's a few things to watch for in this ball game. I will tell you right off the top, I do not expect LSU to win this game. I just don't. But we'll talk about a few things that could impact, like if there is a blueprint for LSU to win, how that might go. But again, I'm not expecting them to win this game. First and foremost, you want to see LSU just acquit themselves better on the road in conference play. First and foremost, because you've had 2 road tests so far in the SEC, and neither of them have been good. You've gotten blown out both times. At Missouri is really the black eye, because Missouri is a good SEC team. Missouri is not a great SEC team. I think many people would tell you they're kind of, in that same realm as you. But you lost 83-67 up in Como. The next game you were in Oxford, you lost 77-65, and it really wasn't that close, to be quite honest with you. So first of all, you just want to see them acquit themselves better on the road when they go up or they go over to College Station to face the Aggies. Now, in terms of blueprint, if LSU is to pull off some type of an upset here, there's a few areas. Texas A&M is not an elite offensive team. They are near the bottom of the SEC in scoring. Now, that does not mean they don't have good players. Zurich Phelps and Wade Taylor IV are both averaging over 15 points per game, and they are the 2 that I would really tell you to look at, to watch for A&M on the offensive side in more ways than one, especially with a guy like Taylor IV, who is top 5 in the SEC in assists. So not only does he score, he distributes it as well. He really sets up A&M's offense well. But, again, that offense is limited. Now, that doesn't mean they aren't capable of going off one night. I mean, they put up 88 against Alabama in a loss. But when you look at LSU, offensively, at times, they've been pretty good. Again, at times. But if you're facing a team, again, towards the bottom in scoring in the league, okay, that plays into your hand. It doesn't seem like A&M can run away and hide, or at least hopefully they can. LSU's going to have to protect the basketball in order for that to happen, right? The other thing that I will submit to you is this, and it's free throws. And that was such a huge part of the game for LSU against Arkansas. 26 of 28. They were able to get to the rim. Arkansas was not able to defend without fouling, and the fouls piled up, and LSU got to the line and made them. They made their free throws. And that's not uncommon. LSU is second in the SEC right now in free throw percentage. They're almost at 80% as a team. They've been great at the stripe. They just have to get there more often. So what I want to see from LSU in this game, and I think it could be a huge reason they win it if they can pull off an upset, like if they're going to pull off an upset, is at the stripe. Not just because of how good LSU is, but the disparity. Texas A&M has attempted the 3rd most free throws in the SEC. 3rd most. They are dead last in the SEC in free throw percentage of converting them. 16th. LSU is 2nd. That is a huge disparity. So A&M has no problem getting to the line. They just have not converted at the line. The guy to watch is Wade Taylor IV, who is converting 90% at the stripe. So keep him off the line, and you have a good chance. LSU has to defend without fouling. They did a fantastic job of that in the second half against Arkansas. Arkansas didn't even get into the bonus. And again, that disparity at the line helped LSU tremendously in that game. That is an advantage that LSU absolutely has over Texas A&M. Where you look at LSU second in the conference, A&M last when it comes to free throw percentage. And A&M's converted plenty. So That's a way you can absolutely limit their scoring. And when you look at them and say, why are they near the bottom in scoring in the SEC? That's also why. Free throw line is going to be huge for what I'm watching. And I think that's one of the biggest keys for LSU if they hope to pull off the upset. Again, I'm not expecting that, but that is what I'm watching. A&M is better at you on the glass. A&M is very comparable to you defensively. So if they can muddy up this game, that's going to play into their favor. LSU needs a shootout type game, I think, in order to win this one. And they really need to convert at the stripe again, like they did against Arkansas. We'll see if they can get it done. Tigers and Aggies, Saturday, a 7:30 tip over there in College Station. LSU will be a substantial underdog, and for good reason. But we'll see if they can build off of what they accomplished on Tuesday against Arkansas, and we'll see, again, first and foremost, if they just acquit themselves better on the road. All right, that's going to wrap it up here today on LSU Daily. Be sure to subscribe, share, like, follow me on social media. All of that is greatly appreciated, and be here next time for more. This is LSU Daily.